Hello, my name is Darren Meritz. I'm doing a model class for Tec de Monterrey in Guadalajara. I am going to do a lesson, I'm preparing a lesson on phrases and clauses today, and I want to convey to you a little bit about how I might be in the classroom if I were able to work for Tec de Monterrey in Guadalajara. If I were giving this lesson in front of a group of 15-year-olds, maybe lower intermediate speakers, I would want to start the lesson off with something a little bit dynamic. I'd want to get students out of their seats. I want to do something that gives them a chance to be energetic, be active, be speaking with their classmates and their friends in English. And that would also provide me with an opportunity to assess how much of this material they may already know, how much they don't know, and whether or not the lesson I'm giving might be something that's a little bit too complex. So I would start by breaking off into groups and doing sort of a what do you know segment, see if they can identify some of the parts of speech and some of the grammar elements that we're going to talk about today. As for the lesson itself, I would the objective would be a lesson on phrases and clauses. It's an introduction. I'd have some definitions, some types of phrases, some types of clauses. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about maybe how we can have students review. So let's take a look at some of the definitions that we have. Okay, so we're going over phrases and clauses. So a phrase is a group of words that contains neither a subject nor a verb. So it may, however, contain a verb form, such as an infinitive, a participle, or a gerund. So a phrase is going to be a small group of words that work well together to convey meaning. It's not going to be a complete sentence. A clause, on the other hand, is a larger group of words that contains at least a subject and a verb, and frequently contains some kind of phrasal complement. So when we think of a clause can be a sentence. It can be a complete sentence, something that conveys a complete thought with a subject and a verb. It can also be something that needs to be attached to another clause, but we'll go more into that a little bit later. All right, let's start with phrases. Today, let's go over 4 different types of phrases. There are many different types, but let's take a look at 4 just for the sake of this lesson. Let's start with prepositional phrases. For me, it's easy to remember what a prepositional phrase is by thinking of the example of a cat in a box. So if you're thinking a cat is in the box, a cat is on the box, a cat is under the box, in the box, on the box. Those are all prepositional phrases. That seems to me like a key way to remember. A prepositional phrase begins with a preposition and ends with a noun, pronoun, gerund, or clause. So if you look for the preposition on, in, under, above, then you'll probably be identifying a prepositional phrase. A couple of examples. In a flash, she realized that the tofu had been underneath her chair all along. In a flash. So in, key indicator that it's a prepositional phrase. After midnight, Egbert's mother was on the roof dancing with a Ukrainian bullfighter. After midnight, after, key indicator, prepositional phrase. Infinitive phrases. So you're looking for an infinitive, a verb in its infinitive form. So you're looking at when you see to plus a verb, then it could be an indication that you're looking at an infinitive phrase. So an infinitive phrase consists of an infinitive, to dance, to fly, to circumnavigate, plus an object. So a couple of examples. To see him suffer is my dearest wish. To see him suffer, that's the phrasal element. And since it begins with the infinitive verb form, to, in this case, to see, then you have your infinitive phrase. Cordelia longed to eat the last tamale. To eat the last tamale, you see the infinitive phrase there as well. To eat, the infinitive verb form, plus the object, the last tamale. So there's 2. Let's go over a couple more. Participial phrases. Like the name suggests, participial phrases begin with the participle. And in a participial phrase, you have a verb that's acting like a different form of speech. In this case, a verb that's acting like an adjective, right? So some examples here: bellowing hyena, flying trapeze, tortured soul, lost love. In each of those cases, you have a verb that's acting like an adjective, so you can identify the participle. And so there we have participial phrases. Fourth one, gerund phrases. So you have to look for a gerund. A gerund, like the participial phrase, like a participle. A gerund is a verb that's going to act like a different form of speech. In this case, it's a verb that's acting like a noun. So when you see a verb that's acting like a noun and it has an ending of ing, you've probably got a gerund and a gerund phrase. So a couple of examples. Playing canasta has been her downfall. Playing canasta is the gerund phrase, and playing, the word playing, to play is really a verb, but in this case it's acting like a noun, so you have a gerund there. He loves embarrassing his relations. Embarrassing his relations is the gerund phrase. So you see the gerund embarrassing. To embarrass is typically the verb form, but here we see it as in the gerund form. So there we have 4 different types of phrases. So a quick review. We looked at prepositional phrases. We looked at infinitive phrases. We looked at participial phrases, and we looked at gerund phrases. So, let's move on then and go on to clauses. Okay, so let's break down clauses into 2 different types: dependent and independent clauses. An independent clause can stand on its own. It's its own sentence. It can act as its own sentence, and it is a complete sentence with a subject and a verb. An independent clause needs nothing else for it to be a complete thought from beginning to end. That contrasts with a dependent clause, which is a group of words with a subject and a predicate that cannot stand on its own. So a dependent clause needs an independent clause with it, or else it can't function as a complete sentence. It's a sentence fragment. So the dependent clause must be attached to an independent clause, or else it's not good English. So let's take a look at a few examples. Erica brushed her long raven hair. Independent clause, clear subject, verb, predicate. So independent clause. Next sentence, Fernando left and Erica brushed her long raven hair. There you have 2 independent clauses that are attached together with a conjunction, the word and. So Fernando left, independent clause, and Erica brushed her long raven hair, also an independent clause. Okay, let's see. This one's a little bit more complicated, but so here's this example. After she told Fernando to leave, Erica brushed her long raven hair. So here we have a dependent clause. After she told Fernando to leave, and it's attached to an independent clause, Erica brushed her long raven hair. Okay, so if I had the opportunity to teach this with a group of 15-year-olds, I would take this chance to give students a chance to review and get a chance to practice a little bit what they've just learned, and I would want a chance to see how much they've retained, see if I'm reaching them really. I would try and do something again in groups, maybe something a little bit competitive, something that gets them out of their seats, something that gets them moving around, speaking in English, always speaking in English. I would try something maybe, games on the whiteboard, a Jeopardy-like competition, or trash the ball, something that gets kids moving, something that gets them having fun, because if they're having fun and they're engaged, then they'll pick it up much better. For a homework assignment, I might recommend a newspaper article or a passage from a piece of literature, maybe American Lit, that students might be reading, and have them identify some of the parts of speech and some of the language that we talked about today. So there's my lesson. Thank you.